Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, Wendy Sellers here. Welcome back to the show. We are here today to talk about confidence and guidance, and I cannot wait to introduce our guest. But before that, I just want to say hello to JC, who I haven't talked to in a while. Hey JC, how you doing?
Oh, Ms. Wendy, I'm doing quite fine. It's a pleasure to hear you today. You sound well rested and ready for the day.
Yeah, I don't know about the rested part, but I have been on the road everywhere, and I am ready to hear this conversation, though, with our guest. So thank you for pretending I'm well rested. I appreciate it.
That's the least I do for our country.
So today we have Dr. Tabatha Russell here, whose mission is to uplift, empower, and inspire motivated women that currently lack confidence and guidance. I absolutely love it. Hi, Dr. Tabatha. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I love that you're a keynote speaker, a best-selling author, financial strategist, investor, Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award recipient, and you have been seen in TEDx, ooh la la, Forbes, ABC, NBC, Fox, and CBS, and you are the CEO of the Wealth Builders Revolution. Tell our listeners about yourself and how you got to where you are now.
Yes. So I've been an entrepreneur for well over 20 years. And I started off with helping people gather their thoughts about what wealth look like, right? Helping them with their credit, helping them with a financial plan and strategy, as well as setting up their business. So I've been helping them to do this for quite some time. I absolutely love helping those that have some sort of thoughts around wanting to be great.
That's awesome. I'm here. I'd like to be great. Thanks for being here. I'm just going to kind of, jump right in. What are the biggest mindset or internal barriers you see holding female leaders back, and how the heck do you guide them past those barriers?
Yes, this is a great question. The primary internal barriers I see are self-permission. A lot of times it's overperformance and isolation. Many high achieving women subconsciously wait for validation before stepping into authority. I've also seen that they've earned their place, but they hesitate to own it, right? So then there's overperformance, the pressure to continually prove worth through results rather than just being present and really asserting their presence. And finally, isolation. Being the belief that leadership is a solo climb rather than a collaborative ascent, right? So my approach focuses on helping women reframe their mindset from earning a seat to owning the seat, right? Ownership takes on a whole totally different level of responsibility, as well as it allows them to be the authentic leader. So through strategic consulting, we replace self-doubt with clarity and teach leaders to leverage their networks, right? Not just navigate them, but confidence grows when identity aligns with impact.
60% of female leaders report self-doubt and lack of confidence as significant career barriers, despite very strong performance and qualifications. And 56% of women entrepreneurs cite fear of failure as a top barrier to business success, compared to 33% of women corporate executives. Wendy, back to you.
Wow, that's amazing stats. And my question, I want to go back to the concept of isolation, especially with remote workplaces. I mean, has that increased, in your opinion, the concept of isolation?
Yeah, the concept of isolation definitely has increased over the course of time because naturally, because we are working with other people, a lot of times we do really good with trying to get along and integrate ourselves into the workplace. But when you don't have that, a lot of people revert back. I hear more people talk about being an introvert than I've ever heard before. And introvert doesn't necessarily mean that you just go into a cocoon and hide, but it also integrates with your people skills, right? I call it your peopling meter. A lot of times when people say that they're introvert, once they're done in, how would you say, once they're done peopling, then they want to go and take a nap, right? So usually their people meter is low. So when it comes to isolation, when there's a challenge, usually we internalize and hurt ourselves versus wanting to get out and integrate with other people or ask for help for that matter. So isolation has become a big thing. And for more people, you'll see that they suffer with depression. Some of them have anxiety. Others will have some challenges even with their health because they don't have that integration of human connection a lot of times. And so isolation has become a big thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said about introvert because I just had a friend, call it out the other day. Obviously, I am not an introvert; I'm more on the introvert side, but not 100% extrovert. I have been on the road the past couple weeks at every conference there was, plane, train, automobile. And when I came back, I was supposed to have dinner with a friend, and she's the one that said, "Hey, listen, I'm an introvert, so I get it if you need to reschedule this dinner," which I would have never done. She's like, "I'm pretty sure you are, over people right now." The HR lady says that. And I was like, "Oh, yes, please, can we reschedule? But really, I just need sleep."
Yeah.
I've written 2 books, and one of my books talks about personality styles. My other book talks about personality traits regarding specifically, ambivert, extrovert, introvert, and that anybody could be, any kind of role. It just, you may have to adjust your personality style or trait because of that. And it may exhaust you or it may energize you. So thank you so much for bringing that up. My follow-up question here is, do you find the same like internal barriers among entrepreneurs versus corporate executives?
I've seen them to be parallel, right? There's a lot of similarities. However, sometimes with an entrepreneur, it shows up a little bit more as opposed to in corporate. In corporate, you're expected to act a certain way and to have a certain facade or either personality type. So you don't see it as often, and sometimes it's masked, but the underlying causes or traits are there on both sides of it. Just as an entrepreneur, you get to, more things goes, as you would say, you get to call more of the shots. So you don't have to address it quite the same, but they're both there parallel, I believe.
70% of female entrepreneurs say access to capital is a major barrier, while 66% of women corporate executives cite lack of sponsorship as their top obstacle.
I would say that's spot on. What are your thoughts, Dr. Tabatha?
Yeah, definitely. Capital a lot of times is the driving force behind most of the time why we do most things, right? Show up to
Right.
work, be on time with a good attitude and everything. But when there is a challenge, we try to bootstrap it as best as possible, still grin and bear it and go through all the motions. But that's the lifeline of any business, though, on the entrepreneur side or corporate side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur and it's hard. You have to make tough decisions. But even, being in corporate, it's the same thing. They have budgets as well. It is that actually have a budget, right? And then have access to it because of all the people that are involved, male or female. So it doesn't really matter in that point. My other question is, from your experience, which development interventions, such as like coaching, mentoring, I don't know, peer groups, leadership training, which development interventions produce the greatest return and why?
Ooh, that's a a really good one there. I believe each of them has value, but the most sustainable results come from an integrated development model, meaning that combining coaching, mentoring, and peer collaboration has proven to be really effective. So, coaching delivers the most immediate behavioral shifts. So, it individualizes the outcomes usually in a more of a focused approach. And so mentorship, though, creates long-term career alignment by transferring wisdom through a relationship. So mentoring can kind of look a little differently because of the relationship building. But when we add in peer learning groups or peer-to-peer coaching or teaching, We see exponential growth because they build accountability and share perspective and collective momentum. So for us in our ecosystem, we use what I call a tri-impact model, which is individualized coaching for clarity, mentoring for continuity, and peer cohorts for community. So the model not only delivers skill sets, but also it strengthens confidence and connection, which are the true engines of leadership success.
Excellent. I love that. And, mentoring, I do mentoring officially, but a lot of it is unofficial, right? We don't even realize that we are being mentors. So we have to sometimes, check ourselves there. And I know JC wants to share some statistics, but before he does that, I found some information from Deloitte that says leadership coaching delivers the highest return on investment for female leadership development, with 72% of participants reported improved confidence and decision making. So, that's the official leadership coaching. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Tabatha?
Yeah, I think having a structured approach definitely allows you to be able to measure the growth as you're going forward. Of course, we talk about SMART goals all the time, but it actually allows you to be able to see where they are and put them on a path or trajectory to where they're going. And being able to see that or map it out, a lot of times, it sets expectations. So a lot of times people are more focused in their approach to achieving the goals versus when it's mentorship, it's a little bit more casual and maybe there's not so much of a structured approach. So yeah, I definitely agree with the leadership.
Women who
model.
participate in structured confidence building programs, they are 3.5 times more likely to ultimately pursue leadership opportunities within 1 year of that training.
I could see that, right? If your confidence is there finally. My question, just based off of my experience, I'm a female. I think I was born with confidence, but sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. How do you even approach people, women or men? How do you approach humans when you're saying, "Hey, I don't think you have enough confidence. Let me help you." Like, how do you get started in this?
So sometimes you have to be a little gentle in that area, right? So if a person does not have high confidence, they're sometimes a little bit more fragile.
Yes.
So you can't just say, "Oh, I think that you're bad because you lack confidence." No, you find out what are some of the things that do make them a little bit more confident. And sometimes I believe that a misalignment of maybe positioning and or either tasks sometimes will take them outside of their normal comfort zone, and it causes some lack of confidence or anxiety around doing the task. So we sometimes will approach it in a few different ways from the standpoint of let's check their alignment, find out what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then work them back into a place of where they can be confident. Because I believe that if we focus on the strengths, the weaknesses a lot of times will increase as opposed to vice versa. A lot of times in corporate, I see a lot of departments focus on the weaknesses and people retreat or withdraw because of sometimes being put on Front Street, right? Or a spotlight being put on them. So when we build up their strengths, it gives them the confidence to build their weaknesses.
And that's where I think it's really important for our listeners today, who are probably wearing the HR hat, even if you're not officially in HR, is to make sure that we are intentionally giving feedback to our employees, no matter, what they identify as, but every single employee. I just find that so many companies say, "Yeah, we give feedback," and they really don't. They're like, "Hey, good job," or "Hey, stop doing that." And it really should be a structured feedback plan and making sure we have structured goals, key performance indicators, SMART goals, and then giving feedback on a regular basis. JC, what are your thoughts on that?
It's quite interesting, Dr. Tabatha, as you were talking about the structured plans. I couldn't help but take a peek over at Gallup, Gallup.com. Organizations that use structured development plans with measurable goals, they do see a 63% increase in employee performance and progression. With that being said, I don't know who I have to call, if it's going to be Wendy Sellers, the HR lady, or if I just stop by Dr. Tabatha's website and start from there. I don't know. I'm at a crossroad. You got to talk to me here.
It really is, though. I mean, the word structure, JC, is, I think, what we really need to be talking about here, because, I'm an HR consultant. Most of my clients, they don't have human resources. So somebody's acting it and they're like, oh, our employees know what we want them to do. And it's like, well, they look kind of confused right now. It doesn't seem to really have any kind of structure to their job, period. Never mind the feedback, but definitely not a development plan. And Dr. Tabatha, let's face it, many companies don't even have a development plan, right? They're like, let's throw something at the wall and see if it sticks.
Exactly. I see it both in corporate as well as on the entrepreneurial side of it, because most entrepreneurs, they're singly focused, right? And they're doing all of the tasks. So they're the salesperson, they're accounting, they're their own HR person. So they're doing a lot of the work there as well. So yeah, it definitely makes a difference when you have a structured plan versus just trying to wing it and put structure in place after the fact. So most employees will say, if there's nothing to hold them accountable to coming through the door, then how could they be wrong?
Right.
So giving them something helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have so many resources out there in this world today. So being a small company is not an excuse for not having structure. And being a big company who's either really good with revenue or struggling, it doesn't matter. There's no excuses. You could use AI to help you, start at least creating plans. Oh, JC has his hand up. What's up there?
We've talked a lot about structure in regards to training and bringing people up and bringing them along. But is it true that sometimes structural barriers might be a hindrance while we're on the topic of structure?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it can definitely go both ways. So there must be some balance in there, right? Structure is the guideline. So I quite often say that not everything is black and white. If you're trying to get the company started, then structure is going to be super important, because that way you set up the guidelines, you set boundaries, different things like that. If you're in a growth and an expansion, that can fluctuate just a little bit. So, but having something initially, a model to go by, helps you to create parameters. And then, of course, as you grow, that can change up over the course of time. But communication is everything.
What?
Communication.
What's that?
Yes, that is the lifeline, along with capital, but
Yeah.
lifeline of success for employees, employer and employee relationships. So I think that is another thing that can help with the structure and balance in the corporation.
I wanted to switch gears here a little bit, or actually add on top of that, just because JC brought up about structural and systematic barriers like, bias, lack of sponsorship, pipeline issues, opportunities when we're advocating for any type of leaders, any type of growth, but definitely for women leaders. Companies that have strong diversity, equity, and inclusion programs tend to average 35% of their leaders as females, compared to only 25% if they have no or weak DEI efforts. So that's a good 10% more of women in leadership roles if you actually have some type of a diversity, equity, and inclusion program, even if you don't call it that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we've seen a big shift in those roles here as of recently, where a lot of companies have removed some of those. However, the need for advocacy for women leaders has not gone away, right? So we must now focus on strategy before we focus on struggle, right? Or the lack thereof. So the goal isn't simply to confront the systems, is to redesign them, right? To make them more cohesive. So I encourage organizations and women leaders alike to adopt a dual approach. So internal advocacy and external architecture. So internally, women must learn to leverage influence and not just effort, right? Identifying key sponsors, aligning with the decision makers, and articulating their value in quantifiable terms. meaning that, it used to be okay to be like, the most popular person, the most liked and things like that. And I no, now today, can you do the job or not? Right. So externally, organizations must move from performative inclusion to structural integration. So that means embedding sponsorship programs, equitable succession pipelines, and measurable accountability for advancement. So true advocacy isn't just about creating exceptions for women, it's about creating or co-creating systems that no longer require those exceptions for women.
I love it. My question is, we talk about the strategies for overcoming these structural and systematic barriers. What do we mean by strategy? Is it just something in our head? Like how does everybody find out about it? And let's dive a little bit more into that about what do we mean by strategy?
Yeah, so just really voicing what it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? Like, so if you are, coming into the company and you're trying to, move up, then what are some of the requirements required for that role? So co-creating sometimes a pipeline of people that are ready for the next position, as well as integrating yourself into maybe a training or mentorship type of positioning definitely helps. So it's not always on, the company everything on the company for there to be some diversity. Sometimes we can interject ourselves in roles that will put us in more favorable positioning, as opposed to waiting for the position to be posted only to say, you're not ready. Well, did you do the things to position yourself differently? So co-creating or integrating into some of the existing model helps with doing that for yourself, as opposed to saying that there's not an opportunity there.
I love it. And I think you answered my next question too. I was going to say, okay, what do we mean by sponsorship programs? And so I think the company has to take something and then the individual has to take something on, right? So the company needs to have like a formal mentorship program, preferably formal versus informal, because if it's informal, it could be biased, right? And it could lead again right back to the barriers that everybody faces, especially females. And then the individual also has to say, okay, I'm going to push myself in, to get seen. But if they don't have the confidence, which is where we started, they're probably not going to do that. So the bossy people like myself are going to be seen, not necessarily taken seriously, but we're going to be heard because we're very loud. But that's not always a good thing either, right? Because other people may try to avoid you. It's like, man, these humans, dealing with humans is difficult. JC, I think you had a stat you wanted to share.
Organizations with formal sponsorship programs, they're 3.5 times more likely to promote high-performing employees into leadership roles.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that. Why would you want to not have a high-performing employee in a leadership role? The other thing that I wanted to comment on there, I've just kind of got off a whirlwind speaking tour, and I've said this before. The word leadership kind of drives me a little crazy. It makes me twitch a little bit because we call people on the top of the org chart leaders, and it's like, you just kind of have a title and probably a paycheck associated with it. Doesn't necessarily mean you are a true leader, meaning you're leading anybody to greatness. You're mentoring people. You're sponsoring people. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Tabatha?
Yeah, leadership is really a broad term, loosely used today, because everybody's a leader in some respect. I do believe, but going the extra mile, like going further than just occupying a seat. As far as doing the sponsorship, the mentorship, I always have operated from a succession plan type of model where I want you to outwork me, right? Like, let me teach you, train you for what it is that I do so that I can move on to something else. If I'm just sitting here and I'm comfortable with occupying where I am, how am I going to grow as well? So helping somebody else to grow, I think, is the true definition of a leader, because you want to see other people win. And so leadership to me is a little bit more in depth. It's like, what are you doing to help the next person in your leadership role. How are you imparting knowledge or making room for somebody else as well? Makes a difference to me.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I just wanted to really follow that up to saying, listen, anybody can be a leader. Don't let the title or where you're at on an org chart, hold you back or anything like that, because anybody can be a leader. Many people that I find were my mentors, unofficial mentors, weren't at all necessarily my direct manager. They were people that said, hey, I see you struggling with this. Let's meet for lunch. Let's grab a coffee, or even let's meet after work and talk this through. And I really find myself doing that a lot for other people. Of course, we're all here to make money. So let's talk about money a little bit too. I found a statistic, JC actually found this statistic that said women owned businesses generate about $1.9 trillion in revenue annually in the United States, and that there are about 12 million women-owned businesses in the US, which employs over 10.7 million people. That's huge. So my question to you, Dr. Tabatha, is as a coach and as a CEO, how do you help women balance entrepreneurial ambition, or even if it's not entrepreneurial, right, it's ambitions for the corporate space? How do you help them balance self-care and manage the imposter syndrome? And then, of course, avoid burnout, which I'm listening closely on that last one here.
So I do keep a busy schedule. I travel a lot. In a lot of different places quite often. So burnout is a real thing that can happen. But I believe that when it comes to helping entrepreneurs with ambition or corporations that have aspirations, we should have balance, right? So ambition is healthy. Imbalance is not, though. The issue isn't drive, it's direction. And so I help leaders identify their alignment zones, meaning that's the intersection of purpose, performance, and personal well-being. So when professionals operate from alignment rather than obligation, productivity increases without the cost of burnout, because that's a real thing. And so bringing in some balance, we alleviate sometimes the opportunity for imposter syndrome, which often stems from misaligned environments or not the lack of ability. Most of the time they can do the work because we're overachievers, right? We as women, we want to do the most and do all of it. However, sometimes that may not be the thing that we're most passionate about that will produce the best results. So we work on redefining success from external validation to internal clarity. So self-care becomes a leadership strategy, not a luxury, but it's built on boundaries, recovery, and internal rest, right? So I tell executives and entrepreneurs alike, sustainable success requires so much stillness as well as it does with strategy.
According to Harvard Business Review, 89% of women who receive executive coaching report reduced burnout and improved work-life balance within 6 months. Back to you.
Oh, hear that, everybody that's listening? 6 months from now, if you have an executive coach, you can have reduced burnout and improve work-life balance. I think everybody needs that, even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you are just, a hard working, going at it corporate employee. So thank you for those stats, JC. One of my final questions here is, looking ahead 5 to 10 years, what is your vision for gender equity in leadership and entrepreneurship? And what are the breakthrough changes you believe must happen? That's a big one.
I was going to say, this is a huge one here. So the next decade, I believe that it demands that equity evolve from conversation to culture, from policy to performance, right? So my vision is that gender equity becomes embedded in leadership design, not treated as an initiative. But to achieve this, 3 breakthroughs I believe must occur. The first one being a pipeline redesign, right? Invest earlier in emerging female talent through mentorship and sponsorship programs. The second thing would be economic empowerment. Move beyond representation metrics to ensure women have access to capital, contracts, and compensation parity. And we see some of that today. However, There's been a little bit of realignment with that as well, but this could be something that could be implemented. And then number three is the cultural recalibration, right? Reward collaborative leadership, emotional intelligence, and innovation equally to traditional performance measures, right? Like performance still has to be there. So you still have to show up, you still have to do the work, you still have to be an exemplary employee. However, letting it start with an invitation, I think sometimes brings a little bit more collaborative effort, as well as a little bit more softness to the table, right? Equity and leadership will no longer mean adding women to the table. It just means women designing the table and being invited there, defining the agenda and driving the results.
Love it. Absolutely love it. This has been very eye-opening, and I thank you for this. Before we wrap up, Dr. Tabatha Russell, how can people connect with you?
You can connect with me at my website at drtabatharussell.com, as well as on all social media platforms at I am Dr. Tabatha.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks, JC. I hope this podcast session has been beneficial to all of our listeners and helpful to your team. Feel free to share this, and you can listen on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or directly on the Aurora Training Advantage website. Take care, everyone, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining the HR Empowerment Podcast, brought to you by Aurora Training Advantage. We hope you've gained new insight and strategies to navigate the HR profession. We look forward to you joining us again on the HR Empowerment Podcast.